Norway has one of the highest qualities of life, but it comes with the price, a big price. It's also one of the world's most expensive countries. So, how much does it really cost to live in Norway? I lived in Oslo for 9 years and 1 year in a small town nearby, and cost of living is always a big topic, especially because prices have increased in the last years. So for this video, we're going to focus on three major Norwegian cities: Oslo, Trondheim, and Bergen. And to do this, we're going to use my own personal data and market data. We're going to focus on a single person household working full time and renting in a private market. And to understand how expensive things really are, we also need to take in account how much people make. So in the end, we will bring in salaries to get a better picture, and by the end, hopefully, we will get a better idea of how expensive the country really is. Let's begin with the country's biggest nightmare: housing. I lived in Oslo and I paid $2,200 for a free room centrally located because I have a big family now. Back in 2017, I rented one-bedroom apartment in middle of Oslo for $1,300 a month. But I do know that prices increased over the years, so let's see by how much. I have it filtered by one bedrooms in Oslo, and the center is always going to be expensive. But what's crazy is that even if you look a bit outside city center, you can't find anything below $1,500 a month. Now, the last time I looked for an apartment was 3 years ago. That was crazy, but not this crazy. It looks like if you want to find something under $1,500 a month, you have to be lucky or you got to search a bit farther away. Let's switch to the Trondheim. Well, it seems like there aren't as many apartments as Oslo, but still you're looking at around $1,500 for a two-room, one-bedroom apartment. In Trondheim is a bit cheaper than Oslo, but this is still quite pricey. I mean, $1,000 for 25 square meters. But in general, you can see that one bedroom goes for $1,200 to $1,600, depends on the area. So let's take a look at Bergen. Not too many one-bedroom apartments in Bergen, but it looks like you're going to pay between $1,400 outside the city center up to $1,900 in the city center for one bedroom. Okay, so that gives us a better idea of how market actually is. But let's dive a little bit deeper and look at crowdsourced data from SSB. It's a central statistic bureau in Norway, and market research from husleie.no and hybel.no. Now for Oslo, SSB tells us a one bedroom goes for average of around 15,260 Norwegian kroners. It's about $1,500. Husleie says it's $1,800 and hybel.no says it's $1,850. So I think a good number now is around $1,900. In Bergen, on Finn, we found apartments between $1,900 and $1,400. SSB tells us $1,200. Husleie says $1,400 and hybel.no says $1,500. Good number will be $1,550. And for Trondheim, good number will be $1,400. Something to keep in mind that to rent apartment in Oslo, you require to pay a deposit for the apartment, which is 3 times monthly rent. If you are serious about finding a good housing in Norway, check out my video about how and where exactly you can search, with all the details of renting market in Norway explained. And besides rent, let's go over utilities, internet, phone, and streaming. When you are renting apartments in Norway, you will be paying usually electricity and water. Some landlords will also include the garbage collection, Wi-Fi, and maybe gas if there's one, but usually it's included in the rent price. I personally paid only electricity in the last apartment I rented, and in the flat before it was also water. Wi-Fi was included in both cases. But if we say that nothing is included, then in average prices for single person usage are like this. Electricity will be from 1,500 to 2,000 Norwegian kroner depending on the season and provider. We take average in dollars, $150. $30 for water, internet 600 Norwegian kron for unlimited data, high speed, so $60. Mobile plan will cost in average 360 Norwegian kroner. I pay 340 Norwegian kroner for Telia SIM card with 5 GB internet and unlimited calls, so $35. And nowadays, most of the people have streaming subscriptions, Netflix being the most popular one. For myself, I paid for free subscriptions. Netflix Premium 189 kroner, which is $18, HBO Max 149 Norwegian kroners, which is $15, and YouTube Premium goes for about $17. So in total, this comes at around $325 per month. Healthcare. This word scares many Americans, but I'm glad to say that in Norway it's a lot more simple and affordable. Healthcare in Norway is public, but it's not totally free. So it means that you don't have to pay insurance. Here, healthcare covered through taxes. So if you are a legal resident in Norway, you are automatically covered by healthcare system. If you do want a better healthcare, you can always buy a private insurance. This will cost an average of $50 per month. Here a lot depends on what coverage you want, your age, and if you already have a medical history. In many cases, if you work in big companies in Norway, they will usually cover private health insurance. If you have pets, the insurance will average also about $50 a month. Every time you go to doctor, you will have to pay small amount yourself. It's an average $25 to $30 per appointment. There are exclusions. For example, kids before 18 years old and pregnant ladies don't have to pay anything when they visit doctor. Also in Norway, if you exceed $330 a year on healthcare bills, including medical prescription, you will automatically get something called frikort, which translates as free card. So you are not supposed to pay anymore if you've paid over that limit. Then doctor's appointments will be for free. But this doesn't include dentist appointments. One visit to dentist for a checkup will cost you 1,000 kroner or $100. For groceries and household items, I shopped in Rema 1000 and Kiwi because it was close to my home and just convenient. These shops will be the cheapest together with the Coop, and there are also more expensive supermarkets like Menu, Jacobs, Matkroken, and small shops which are usually open on Sundays like Joker and Bumpris. Here you can see average prices on popular food items. The quality of different items is also very different to other countries. For example, fresh fruits in Norway are often pricey, especially berries and more exotic fruits, and the taste will often disappoint. But at the same time, Norway have a local produce of milk products and cheese, which is very hard to beat, in my opinion. I still really miss butter and cheese from Norway. When it comes to monthly spending, you need to count at least $500 for one person in Oslo and about the same in Bergen and Trondheim. But that doesn't include dining out, which can be really expensive, especially in the places like Oslo. But this also depends. Is it summer? Is it winter? Are you going on the dates? Are you going Norwegian? For example, in Oslo, the average cost of date is around $120. Yes, a nice dinner and drinks, easily $120. Now for me, in Oslo, I usually dine out in a low to mid-range restaurants, and I spend around $25 for lunch or brunch and about $50 for dinner, which includes a drink or two. And I have multiple cappuccinos per week because I like coffee. Also, if you want to eat a hot dog or bakery here and there, it will be average of $5 per snack. So overall, going out will average at $415 in Oslo. Prices in Bergen will be 5% cheaper and in Trondheim 10% cheaper. Oh, Norwegian public transport, something people love complaining about because it's expensive. One of the most expensive in the world. And to be honest, it really is. For example, a 30-minute ride from Oslo to Drammen costs $15. But what is nice, if you need to travel longer distances for work in Norway, You can get a tax deduction or even be reimbursed by your employee. If you want to travel across the country for sightseeing, 9-hour trip from Oslo to Ålesund will be around $100 to $120 for a single adult. Let's look at how much 30-day ticket will cost you as an adult in different cities if we take in account that you are just traveling inside the city. In Oslo, for example, monthly ticket costs 985 Norwegian kroners, $98. In Bergen it will be $82 and in Trondheim about $95. Of course, there are discounts for different categories like old people, students, kids. In Trondheim, it's even a discount if you use a public transport to get solely to work. As I make video right now, before the New Year's, prices are changing. Yearly price for transport in Norway goes up. In average, public transport prices going up by 6-7% annually. When you live in the city, there is always option to bike. It's a good investment because infrastructure for bicycling is good and other traffic is aware of bicyclists. Just drive by the rules. And what about cars? I've been car-free when I lived in Oslo because you can get anywhere by public transport and goes often. And as a car owner, you need to pay road fees, not to mention that parking in the cities is expensive. But just for the information, gasoline in Norway right now costs about $8 per gallon. Another big part of life in Norway for many people is gym. There are plenty of different fitness centers with swimming pools, with climbing walls, with extra dances and yoga classes. You can find yours for interests and budget. Let's compare prices on the popular in Norway fitness center sets. If you live in Oslo, basic membership will cost you 699 Norwegian kroner or about $70. In Bergen and Trondheim, it's a little cheaper, $60. This is the baseline, and further price will of course depend on the building and extras you get. Also, you can always find a local fitness center where prices starts at around $30 per month. To be fair, let's put $50 for each of the cities. So this will be major categories, but we also should not forget expenses for personal care, leisure, travel, clothes. In total, you will typically spend around $3,400 per month in Oslo, and in Bergen and Trondheim it's 10% cheaper and it's mostly due to housing. So when we look at these numbers, is it expensive? Well, it depends. It also depends how much you make. So here's what we will do. We are going to create a budget. Money in, money out. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but it gives us a better idea of how expensive country really is. So from a waiter to a teacher to someone who working in finance and oil industry. These are their salaries and monthly income after taxes in the US dollars. So let's plug in monthly expenses that we've calculated. And finally, let's see how much we will save or lose based on these scenarios. What it tells us is if you want to live in a place like Oslo, you need to be well off or lucky to find a place to rent. Or you can live with roommates, or you can just be filthy rich. Now Bergen and Trondheim are more affordable, but not by much. Other big cities like Stavanger, Kristiansand, Drammen are also quite expensive. The big factor is housing. If you live in a smaller town outside of major cities, housing is a lot more affordable and you can actually save. But the truth is, plan on spending 30 to 60% of your take-home pay on rent if you want to live in a major city. But in general, for a single person who wants to live alone in Oslo, I would say one need at least $70,000 gross income. 65,000 in Bergen and 60,000 in Trondheim. Now, you can probably find a smaller studio, but this is if you want one bedroom. Again, many of these numbers are objective, but also subjective. So please let me know your thoughts. So how expensive is Norway? Beside housing in the big cities and towns, I actually think it's still quite affordable. Given that you don't need to pay a healthcare cost like in many other countries, and you can get high education for free. And you don't need to live in a big city. There are plenty of beautiful small towns that are affordable. And when it comes to the cost of living, there are other factors you cannot put a price tag on, such as what's the community like, the people, the job market. For me, paying to live in Oslo has been worth it. It has been a dream come true. It's something that I will look back in my life on and say, wow, what an experience. Well, that's it for me. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments below, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.